Hey friends, so I wanted to talk about Filomena, está aburrida. I just started this novel. My class is my second or third year using this novel. So first it was a YouTube story that Theresa Jensen, the author, put together. I did it pandemic year when we were all teaching virtually, and my kids loved it. I reached out to her and I said, hey, I think you really should expand the story. My kids loved it, and she's like, are you serious? I'm like, no, you really have to do this. So the reason why I mention that is because when my students opened this book, the first thing they saw was I dedicate this book to AC Quintero and her students. And they're like, why is she dedicating the book to you? And I told them the story, and they thought it was very endearing. So that's a little bit of the backstory. I'm going to share some activities that I did with them this past week. So if you didn't see the video, I shared a video of me reading to the students. And the first thing I did, so let's talk about that activity. So this book is really short. You can get through this in like a week. I'm going to take 2 weeks because I love doing lots of sort of priming activities. We work with the vocabulary a little bit. I do a lot of sort of, call and response type activities, kind of like personal interview style. So that's why I'm probably going to take about 2 weeks to do this. But if you want something quick, interesting, and this is illustrated, like my kids, when they opened it, they were like, oh, it has pictures, it's amazing just how that really connects with them. They, love just the visual aspect of it. So that's kind of what I did. All right, so let me go over. I have an actual activity here. I do give my students printed activities, and I'm going to tell you why. When I don't, they find other things to do. So I don't know. That's just been my experience. I personally don't like stressing myself out. And a lot of times, at least in my experience after the pandemic, kids are always like, is this graded? Do we have to write? And I'm just like, yes to all of the above. So the first thing that they did, my first activity is, it's activity 1, escuchar. And I read the first chapter of the book. So the first chapter of the book, and that's what you'll see on the video that I did. The first chapter of the book is a few pages. And what I like about it is there's like an emphasis on the superlative, and the students really took to that. And without me teaching explicitly, they understood it. So what the author did was she took a cognate like famoso, and she wrote famosísimo, famosísima, and the kids was like, okay, what do you think that means? And they're like, oh, really famous, And then I just had like a play on words. Like I told them, I said, esta novela es corta, es cortísima, So I was kind of like using that a lot, and they were like, oh, okay. They got it right away. So I read the first chapter, and then I just had kids, the directions here, and I'm going to include this below. It says, escuche el capítulo 1 de Filomena está aburrida y escribe 3 a 5 detalles sobre su vida en inglés o en español. So they can write in English or they can write in Spanish. So a lot of my students, because this is second semester, they want to show off, they wrote all of their details in Spanish, which is totally fine. So then after I did that with the students, I had them read in partners. So I had them read to each other, and then they just did simple true and false questions. If the statements, if the statement was false, they had to write what the actual statement was. And then after that, again, this is super simple, but they loved it. They enjoyed this so much. For chapter 2, if you look here, for chapter 2, I didn't want to do questions. I just had like 3 characters, and they had to write 3 things about all 3 characters. So detail about their life. Now, one thing I will say, and that's just my first 3 chapters, I am a big believer in keeping things as simple as possible. Okay. So we did that. Oh, I actually did a little bit of a picture talk. I told them about the book. I explained about the author because I know the author. And also I went around asking them if they were bored, and a lot of kids were like, no, I'm not bored, which I was surprised. Because a lot of times they're like, I'm so bored. So yeah, that's what we did for the first 3 chapters. Also, something that I created that I will be sharing too is I did a little slide deck. So this was when we were teaching virtually, but I think anybody could use it in any way. I wrote up a little text, a little blurb about, it was like research on brain, on boredom, research from like neurologists and what they say, or neuroscience, what they say about being bored in the brain and how that's like really beneficial. So the students read that. We talk about that a little bit. You know, I bring it down. It's super, very, very simple. And the other thing that I want to do with this book, I'll continue to share as we go through, is since the main character she finds this project or something that she really wants to do that gives back to the community, I'm going to have students design their own little projects. And it can be like cleaning up the neighborhood. It can be helping someone. Snap a picture, and then we'll do like a little show and tell. So that's the plan. So we'll see how it goes. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and everything should be linked in the comments. Adios.